We need 4 things to start this project. You need a piece of your white drawing paper out of your art kit. You need to grab a ruler, a pencil, and I always like to grab an extra eraser too, so I don't have to worry about what's on the end of this one. Before we begin drawing our iPhone case, or iPhone itself, without the selfie on it, I want to talk to you about drawing very, very lightly as you start with this process, so that when we go back and erase some of these lines that we are making, because some of them may be guidelines and only there to set up what we are drawing, I want it to be easy for you to erase. So if I press down really hard and dark, I get a super dark line. If I don't press down so hard, I get a nice light line. If I go to erase those things, one of them disappears almost immediately, and this guy doesn't want to go anywhere. So, with whatever we do, please try to draw as light as you possibly can so it'll be easy to erase. We are going to do some basic, simple measuring, and I'm going to really show you a trick that I use to get a straight line, and we're going to use this process over and over again. So basically, when I'm trying to make a straight line go across, let's say, along the bottom here, parallel with this edge, what I'm going to do is make 3 marks on my paper. One somewhere near the end, one somewhere near the middle, and one somewhere near the other end. It doesn't really matter exactly where they are, just so that they are decently spread out on the paper. So let's do that. We are starting by drawing the outside of an iPhone, the outer edge, which will be the shell of the phone. You can decide if it's showing the case or without the case. That's going to be up to you. That'll be a later decision. So what I'm going to do is measure 1.5 inches, and I'm going to come in 1.5 inches from this edge going this way so that I can make a straight line going across the edge of the paper. So I get the length of the iPhone starting to begin in the center of my paper here. Everyone's rulers may look a little different, but we have inches on one side and centimeters along the other. So what I'm looking for is 1 inch, so I come and look and I see a line right after the inch, so that is where 1 inch is, but I said we're going to go a little bit further. So we're going to go over to 1.5, not quite all the way to 2, but to 1.5. So you can place this different ways on your paper. I'm going to show you starting with the 1.5 on the outside edge. So somewhere near the edge of my paper, I have found my 1.5 inch mark, and I have lined it up exactly with my paper. And I'm somewhere down near this end. So I'm going to follow up to the end of the ruler, and right at the end, I'm going to draw a little line. So I told you I want you to do that in the middle. So I'm just going to cruise down, and somewhere in the middle, I'm going to stop. I'm going to make sure that my line, again, is lined up right on the edge of the paper. I'm going to go to the top of my ruler, and I'm going to make a little mark. Then the third mark that we are going to make is we are going to cruise down to the other end of the paper, make sure it is lined up correctly with my 1.5 on the edge, cruise up, and I'm going to make a little line on my paper. So there I have 3 marks that I've made. Now to get a straight line, I'm going to use these 3 marks and line them up against my ruler. So I'm going to take my ruler with the straight metal edge that I have towards the top, and I'm going to put it across my paper so that the 3 lines line up as perfect as I can get them. So I don't want one way down here, so you see all this space, and then we're right up against the edge here. We don't want to be down below. We want to be just right. And we made 3 marks because one of these might not be perfect. But if we get it generally lined up on that line, I'm going to take my pencil, cruise down it, and I am going to get a straight line. So now you can see I have a line perfectly straight down my paper. What I'm going to do is turn my paper. So I'm going to go to the other long side And what I'm going to do is repeat that process again. So you're going to make 3 marks and draw a line. 1.5 inches somewhere near the end. Make a mark. Somewhere in the middle, 1.5 inches, make a mark. Somewhere near the end, 1.5 inches, make a mark. I am then going to connect all 3 by lining that ruler up as best as I can, holding it in place, drawing a light line, and now I have another straight line on my paper. I am now going to turn my paper so it's going vertical, and I have my shorter end, and 1.5 is our magic number. We are going to do the same thing from this end as well. I start with my ruler with 1.5 somewhere near the edge, make a mark, go somewhere in the middle, 1.5 inches, make a mark, go to the end, 1.5 inches, make a mark. So now I'm going to connect these 3 dots to get a straight line. So you can see we are starting to form an inner rectangle. I'm going to flip my paper so I get the other end, and we are going to repeat the process. 1.5 inches, I'm making a mark, moving my ruler 1.5 inches, making a mark. I am moving my ruler 1.5 inches and making a mark, and I am going to connect these 3 together as best I can. That one in the middle is a little off. That's okay. We get a straight line. I have turned my paper back horizontally, and we can see this rectangle in the middle. What I would love for you to do is take an eraser and get rid of these extra guidelines that are in the 4 corners. Once you have done that, you should be left with a nice rectangle in the center. And we have the basic start of an iPhone. Turn it back horizontal so you can see that rectangle. Now what we're going to do is shrink the width of our phone slightly so that we have an area to put 2 volume buttons on one side and a power button on the other side. Okay, so we're going to do the same process as we have been doing, where we are making 3 marks and then connecting them to make a straight line. So again, I'm going to make a kind of a space so that we can make these buttons. So this bottom edge along here, I want us to come in 1/4 inch. So we're going to take a look at our ruler, and we've got our full inch line here, 1/2 inch is here, so our 1/4 inch is this line right here in the middle, between the edge of here and the 1/2 inch line here. So I'm going to place this down on the edge, and again, what I'm going to do is I want to measure inside the phone, so there's no reason to go to the edge of the paper. I'm going to go to the edge of this rectangle, and I'm going to put my 1/4 inch right on the line I drew, and I'm going to make a little mark right up there. Then again, we're going to go somewhere in the middle. I'm going to put my ruler there, go to the top, make a little mark. I'm going to slide down to the end near it, line up my 1/4 inch on the line, and I am going to make a mark. Then I have 3 lines on the paper. Those 3 lines we are going to connect So I'm going to place my ruler down on the edge, do my best to line those 3 up along it. And again, I'm going to stay within the rectangle so I don't have to erase anything. And I am going to draw a straight line. So you should end up with a little 1/4 of an inch stripe along the bottom there. I am going to rotate my paper, and I'm going to do the exact same thing that we just did now on this side, across from it. So I'm going to take my ruler, 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to line it up somewhere near the end of my little rectangle, go to the top and make a mark. I'm going to go somewhere in the middle, line my ruler up to 1/4 of an inch, going to make a little mark. I'm going to go to the end, line my ruler up with 1/4 of an inch, and make a little mark. And I am left with the 3 lines there where I can then line up my ruler and now I should have a rectangle that has 1/4 of an inch stripe on the bottom and 1/4 of an inch stripe on the top. So here we are. This inside edge at the top of the 1/4 of the stripe is going to be the side of here. This edge is going to be one of the button edges out here. Same with this side. This edge is the edge of the phone. You can see the little button sticking out. We're going to make that up in here. So now what we're going to add is a stripe here for that section and a stripe here for that section. Once again, our magic number is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to look at my ruler and remember where that 1.5 inches are. So 1.5 inches. This time I'm going to come in from the sides, this side here and this side here. If it's easier to do it this way, you can, or we can also rotate your paper. So somewhere near the bottom, I'm going to line up my 1.5 on the edge. I'm going to slide it up, line it up, 1.5 on the edge. And one more time, 1.5 near the edge. Now, again, having those 3 dots, or 3 marks, excuse me, I'm going to line them up on that ruler, and I'm going to stay within the inner rectangle and draw down. So I didn't go into this stripe. I stayed down in here. So let's repeat that now on the other side. So at this side, I'm going to put my ruler down near the bottom of my rectangle, come in 1.5, and make a little mark. I'm going to move my ruler up somewhere in the middle, about 1.5, make a little mark. 3rd time's the charm, up near the top, 1.5, make a little mark. I'm left with those 3 lines. We should be getting pros at this, or getting to be a pro at this, I should say. And I'm going to line those 3 up and draw down. And now I have a basic shape of an iPhone. There's more to come. Before we draw any more in the center of the phone, to help it make a little bit more sense, we're going to add the buttons and get rid of any of this extra line on the outside. So I would love for you to turn your paper one direction so it is becoming vertical, and we can't see quite all my top and bottom, but we can see the top, which is what I want to show you. My phone in its case is a little hard to see, but you can see the lock button sticking out on the top right, and then on the other side, basically across from it on the top left, is a volume up and a volume down. So we're going to add those to our drawing to give it a little bit more of a realistic look. The power button looking at my phone is slightly below where this stripe is that we just made across the top. So what I'm going to do is come slightly down below. I'm going to make a little mark, okay? And what I'm going to do is grab my ruler, and that ruler is going to help me make a straight line out into space out over here. So there's the top of my power button. I'm going to move the phone out of the way. What I'd love for you to do is put your ruler up against that line you just made, slide down so you get a length that you would like for the length of your power button, and I'm going to go about there, and I'm going to make another mark. So then, using my eraser, I am going to erase all of this extra line that is sticking out from my phone. And I got rid of the little one coming across at the top. So there we have our lock button. So now I'm going to go across to the other side and make my volume up and my volume down. So I'm going to put my ruler on the paper and slide it down till I line up with this one. And that way I know that I am pretty straight across the paper. And I can just give a look and see that I'm looking as best as I can to be straight. Whoops. And once we are comfortable, and the ruler may wiggle like it just did on me, I'm going to make a mark. I'm going to come to the bottom of it, do the same, and come across. So there's my volume up. What I'm going to do is leave a little space in between, not a lot, and I'm going to put my ruler there and make a little line parallel with that top one. I'm going to slide my ruler down till I get about the same length as that one, maybe up a little bit. Put my ruler on there and get a line. So now you can come in with your eraser, and I am going to erase the top, the little bit in between those buttons, and that's where an eraser with a little edge, you can squeeze in there. And then I'm going to get rid of the rest of this line coming down the bottom. And we should have a general shell of an iPhone. Just a few more steps. You have been doing a great job. We're now going to add some sides onto the phone. So we have some edges of a phone case, and then we're left with a screen in the center. So I'm going to rotate my paper so that it is going horizontal again, so you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. It just fits in the screen better. This time we are going to measure a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to take a look at my ruler. I'm going to figure out where an inch is, and I'm going to look for in the middle. And there should be a larger line cutting it in half, and then your quarters on either end. So we're going to use that 1/2 inch line right there. Just like we've been doing, we are going to make 3 marks that go down the length of your phone. So I'm going to use the space in here. There's no reason to go in the outside out here. We're just going to put an edge in the center here, or along the edge here, and along the edge of the top. So I'm going to take my ruler, look for my 1/2 inch. I'm going to line it up within this rectangle here. Go to the top, make a mark like usual, one near the end. We're going to cruise somewhere in the middle. Line up a 1/2 inch, make a mark. I'm going to line or slide down to the other end. Line up on the 1/2 inch mark and make another line. We've got those 3 lines. Once again, connecting the dots. So I'm going to do my best to put those 3 lines on that ruler and connect them with a light line. Okay? So now, let's do the other side. I'm going to rotate my paper and do the same exact thing. Take my 1/2 inch, lay it down on my paper on the line here, and somewhere inside that rectangle, make a mark near the top. We're going to slide halfway. I'm not worrying about those buttons being there. Make sure my ruler's at a 1/2 inch. Come to the top, make a mark. Last one, sliding it down. Again, making sure my ruler is lined up on a 1/2 inch. Go to the top, making a line. I have the 3 marks. I am going to take my ruler, do my very best to line them up, and we are going to draw a line. Let's do a little bit more erasing. I'm going to take my eraser and get rid of this line in here. Turn it, get rid of this line, and get rid of the other 2 on the other side. So we are going to add some finishing details so that we know it's an iPhone. We need to put the big circular button at the bottom, and we need to put a little circle and a sideways oval for our front-facing cameras. So let's do that. Time out for a trick about circles. They're really annoying. They're hard to make to be absolutely perfect. So sometimes you can use other things as a tool that you might find around the house. I know that I want a circle probably about the size of like my finger down here on the bottom. So I looked around the house, I found something that looks like this, and I found something that looks like this. I'm gonna go with the larger item. I'm gonna basically, what I like to say is guesstimate where I want that circle to be, about in the center from this edge and this edge, and same from the top and the bottom. What I'm going to do is do my best to hold that there, and I am simply going to take my pencil and trace around. And when I lift up that marker, I get a pretty decent center circle. Now I don't have any tricks for the top ones, but what I'm going to do is look where this circle is, and basically in my mind draw a line to the other side. Once I get to the other side, what I'm going to do is draw a very skinny oval squished in here on its side. So I am going to turn and draw a little skinny oval, and sometimes I like to trace around it a couple times to help get that shape. So I've got part of my front camera, and another element is a little circle added to the left of it. The last step to this iPhone is iPhones aren't square and pointy or rectangular. They have very rounded corners even though they are a rectangle. So I'm going to show you a very quick, easy way to do this. I like coming to the bottoms and on one side drawing a curve going this way like a sideways smile. Then I come to the other side and I need to do the same thing so that the curve is going towards the out, and you can see I go over it a couple times till I get a curve that I like. Then what you can do is erase the little triangle pointies, and we are left with that smooth rounded corner. Let's do that at the tops too. So you're going to come in, add a rounded, it's almost like a sideways frown now instead of a smile. The curve's kind of going down. And I'm going to come to the other side, and I am going to do the same thing. Up in that corner, I'm going to add a little bit of a frown, sideways frown. Come in and erase those 2 corners. And there we have it. Our rounded, ready to go iPhone. So this is where we're going to stop for today, or I'm going to stop with direct instruction. Before we go into direct instruction on how to draw you in the center, you can stop and leave your outside shell empty, or if you would like, with a pencil, if you would like to design some sort of case or edge or decoration pattern to go around the sides, you certainly may. For one of my selfies as an example, I drew lots of added elements onto my case. So if you would like to add more elements in, then go ahead and draw them now with a pencil. Do not use marker, do not use color, just pencil. You might change your mind.